Greetings and welcome to Education in Focus, powered by Chalkboard News. I'm Dan McCaleb, Vice President of News and Content at the Franklin News Foundation, which publishes chalkboardnews.com. Chalkboard is a news website dedicated to issues related through kindergarten through 12th grade education. Joining me again, as he does each and every week, is Chalkboard's K through 12 editor, Brendan Clary. How are you, Brendan?
I'm doing well, Darren. How about you?
I am doing great, thank you. We are recording this on Monday, November 6th. Brendan, you've written a lot at Chalkboard News about parents' rights in education. There's been a trend in recent years, at least it seems to me, that some school districts in some states are taking away parents' rights when it comes to deciding what's best for their children. The latest example comes from a southeast Michigan school district where parents are no longer able to opt their children out of learning about gender issues or sexuality, things like that. Tell us more.
Yeah, so the latest comes out of Southeast Michigan School District, the Dexter Community Schools. The organization Parents Defending Education, they received a complaint from a parent saying that the school board was changing its sex ed policy to basically carve out instructional materials that were not specifically in a health class. So for example, like an English class where you would read a book and the main character might, be of a sexual minority. And so then, parents would not be able to say, hey, I'd like to opt my child out of that. And that, is, I think sort of an innocuous sort of policy to just say, in terms of the policy, that's the, sex education policy. It basically just says, parents can't opt out of classes or can't opt out of instruction outside of health classes. So basically, Michigan law, you can only opt out of health classes, I believe. And that's, sort of based on, questions about faith or, different parental rights and upbringing. But that's increasingly becoming a little bit more of a political, topic. As you mentioned, Dan, there's a school board, the Montgomery County School Board in Maryland, for example, and you've mentioned, I've written about this a lot. This is, basically the divide over what content students should be reading in class and also be able to access in the library is one that we've had a lot over the last couple of years, especially this year, and something. And so this is sort of like the this is sort of that broader debate, right? Of like, what should students be taking? What book should they be reading in class? And how is that sort of enforced by the school district? And so the Montgomery County Board of Education's policy essentially says that parents can't opt out of, I think it's equitable or, diverse viewpoint books, right? So there's basically LGBTQ plus books that are in elementary schools for students to have, more diverse education. And so that's what they're saying is, we need students to understand. And I think the idea is also to build, sort of a curriculum that is inclusive of a lot of different sexual minorities. And parents have said, I don't want my students receiving instruction that is related to maybe gender ideology or sexual ideology, and so I want to opt them out. And the school board has said, the Montgomery County School Board has said, you can't do that. And so I think that's basically, I think what critics are worried about happening in Dexter community schools. That they're flagging that and saying, look, this new policy means parents can't opt their kids out of reading books that maybe contain LGBTQ plus characters or situations, right? But then on the other side, you have, the proponents of this saying, we need to teach children about, these different alternate maybe identities and that kind of thing.
So my understanding is Michigan state law does allow parents to opt out their children from sexual education. But this new policy in this school district essentially redefines sex education, and this is according to a group called Parents Defending Education. It redefines sex education to remove LGBTQ and gender ideology lessons from being considered as part of the overall sexual education content. So the policy essentially says these issues related to LGBTQ issues, gender ideology, etc., is not sex education. So what is this group, Parents Defending Education? What is their take on it?
Yeah, their take would be, parents should have the right to opt out of any of the content that they would find disagreeable, right? And that they would have the right to raise their child how they want, and that, the public schools should help them on that mission, basically, and that they should be able to say, this is what I want my kid to learn or not to learn. And I think basically what we're talking about in this is what is sex education. And so, under state law, right, sex education would be like in a health class generally. But I think that with this new kind of policy and these new sorts of discussions about what sex education looks like, is a book that teaches students about different, sexual identities considered a sex education, if it's taught in an English class, for example. And so I think that is sort of the broader question here is how do we define that? How do we define, instruction on gender identity, right? Should that only be in health classes? The Montgomery County Board of Education has said, no, we want to include this in a lot of different classes. There is a lawsuit there. Parents have said, we want the opportunity to opt out. And so that is an ongoing thing. And there's a lot of, and this has been in Chalkboard News as well, there's been attorneys general on both sides weighing in with amicus briefs saying, parents should have the right to opt out, or no, parents should not have the right to opt out. And that has basically broken down on, Democrat and Republican states, I believe. So, and that's the question is, how much of a right should parents have to be able to pull their students out from material they might find objectionable versus, what a judge has said is the board's interest in providing a safe and supportive learning environment for its students and, being able to comply with anti-discrimination laws. And so that's basically the argument that the Montgomery County Board of Education has taken in its defense. And so that I think previously, like a federal judge ruled that, and now it's in an appeals court, and it's further down the legal line there. So that's sort of the broader question, right, is what does sex education entail, and can you kind of have elements of that in other classes? I mean, and in Montgomery County, it's quite young, it's elementary school, where they're having books about gender and some of that sex ed. And so that's one of those broader issues, and, parents' rights is kind of mixed in that too. So it's sort of a lot of sort of hot button issues related to, what seems like kind of an innocuous policy on its face. There's sort of like a background there of, questions that are raised from that.
Well, as we both noted, Brendan, this is a hot topic that's being debated in school board meetings across the country. Our listeners can keep up with these debates and all news related to K through 12 education at chalkboardnews.com. But we are out of time. For Brendan Clary, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe. Thank you for listening.